Greetings and the most heartfelt salutations, everybody. Welcome to the Collider Flash Recap Show right here on the Collider Network. So glad you decided to join us tonight for episode 1 of season 2 of The Flash. My name is John Campea. I'm one of your hosts tonight, talking about, finally, The Flash has started back up again. So glad it's back. And as you remember, we did a preseason episode last week. Thank you so much for all you guys who joined us for that and commented and everything. We are looking forward to a great season. Sitting over here on my left, same crew as last week, we've got
David Griffin. So excited to talk about The Flash season 2 premiere. Cisco was starting to get some bad vibes.
Oh.
Where's the drum? Come on.
you know what I think? I think it's the Bills hat.
That was too much.
I think,
That was
yeah.
too much.
Sitting over here on my immediate right.
Hello, I'm John Rocha. I hope I'm looking into the right camera. But yeah, I'm excited. This was fun to start this and watch it with you guys. It was such a great experience. And Daniel Panabaker is back, which I couldn't be happier about.
And of course, joining us down there on the end.
Hey guys, I'm Quinn Marie. I'm very excited to talk about this episode, and I'm very excited to see what you guys thought.
Well, let's get. I'm gonna admit. I'm gonna confess. I cheated a little bit. I watched the episode twice tonight.
Boo.
I saw it once before everybody got here because I had some time to kill. So I thought I'll just watch it now. So anyway, with that out of the way, listen. This is what we're gonna do. We're gonna talk about the things we loved about this episode. We're gonna talk about the things maybe we were a little bit concerned about the episode. We're gonna take some of your Twitter questions. And by the way, I'll bring this up now. You can tweet to us anytime. Just send out a tweet and make sure your tweet includes the hashtag #ColliderFlash. If you send that tweet out, we'll be able to find it. We took a couple of your questions earlier. We'll have them on the show in just a little bit. So let's get started with some of the things we liked about this episode, season 2, episode 1 of The Flash. David, let's start with you. What were some of your highlights for the episode?
Cisco, as always. Cisco and his quotes. Fear the beard. Captain Singh is alive. I wasn't sure what happened to Captain Singh. I couldn't remember if he was alive or not at the end.
Right.
He's alive and he's growing a beard. So seeing Cisco back, all those moments. He's one of my favorite characters. Everything he says just gold. It's comedic gold. He's funny. Also seeing Professor Stein, I thought was really strong in this episode. Had some really good lines. Of course, a great toast towards the end of the episode, talking about
What was that Hebrew word? I remember it was
Kadima.
Forward. Yeah.
Kadima.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. So I mean, he's just an incredible actor on the show. Yeah.
That was
exactly.
a great it was a great toast, and it actually fit. I was expecting, as soon as he tapped the glass, ting, 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 everybody, everybody, which I'm thinking his dad is going to say, I don't know who the F you are. But okay, so he's thinking, everybody gather around, everybody gather around. But then he gives that speech, and I was expecting something like very CW cheesy-ish, but I felt inspired when he said it moves forward. I was like, that was oddly appropriate. Anyway, what else were some of your highlights?
I loved, there was a little, I know I mentioned it to you during the episode, a little connection in time with Barry's, just stuff he's going through. There was 6 months since the singularity, since all the, drama happened, which we actually had to see what happened, actually who went down. And then there was 6 months we had a flashback to when he was a little kid. It was 6 months between the time, like when you had the mac and cheese, and Joe said it's been 6 months since your parents.
By the way,
that moment too.
that mac and cheese looked fun.
Oh yeah, if someone puts mac and cheese in front of you, you eat that mac and cheese.
I audibly said something when that mac and cheese came out. I'm like, oh hell, that looks good.
Yeah.
That looked really good. Like
So
good mac and cheese.
I love that every time with Joe, and it's always incredible. Those are my favorite moments.
What about you, John? What are some of the highlights for you this episode?
Well, I definitely want to start with Adam Smasher. Being a being a lover of WWE wrestling, it was great to see Adam Copeland up there, also known as Edge. And I also love the Adam Smasher as a character, because if you know the history of Adam Smasher, like he goes back and forth between being good and evil. He's been on JSA. He fought with the Justice League. He's also been evil, and he's even has a rivalry with Black Adam. So now Black Adam is possibly in play on the show, which I think is pretty awesome. And also, it was great to hear the word Zoom. So Professor Zoom, just mentioning him. I mean, they threw a lot of stuff at the end. The thing with the dad, and then Jay Garrick showing up. So there was a lot for me that near the end was fantastic. The episode itself, but a lot of stuff near the end was great. So those definitely highlights.
The last 5 to 10 minutes of that show were very packed.
Yes.
A lot of stuff going on in there. Quinn, what about you? What were some of the highlights of the episode for you?
I agree. Cisco always just gets better and better. I love his one-liners. I don't know, he's so friendly, and he's so relatable, and he just keeps, I don't know, every episode I like him more and more. So that was a highlight. I also, because I'm not familiar with Zoom, I really like the way that they set up the introducing him. because it was very, dramatic, and we don't know, Adam Smasher's about to die, and I thought that was cool because I was like, who is this? So I really like the way that they set that up. Yeah, that was 2 highlights for me.
For me, I got a lot more because I really like this episode. I'll be honest with you, going into the season finale, which I thought was very, very strong, I didn't know what to feel about the whole singularity forming over the city. It's like, that opens the door, no pun intended. That opens the door for a lot of bad stuff and a lot of cheesy stuff. And I got to tell you, while I had a couple people tweeting to me that they were kind of frustrated that they didn't do more with the singularity, I got to tell you, personally, I feel like they handled it perfectly. It starts after the singularity. 6 months later, we get a little bit of why is there this distance between Flash and the rest of his team, but they don't dwell on it. Like, they introduce that as a little plot point, but then they address it. Like, it's within 10 or 15 minutes of the episode starting that they do then the flashback to the singularity again to show us what happened. I think a lesser show could have dragged out for 3 episodes until we finally find out what is it that happened at the singularity that caused Barry to want to isolate himself from everybody. But instead, they gave us that little bit of a, hey, what's going on? And then an answer. And I find that that's something the writers of Flash have done really well since the beginning of season 1 is they introduce these questions, but then they give us answers fairly quickly. Yeah. And they keep the moving and the pacing of the story going really well on that level. It was kind of odd seeing, hey, season 1, episode 1, Ronnie dies. Season 2, episode 1, Ronnie dies. So I expect him back in a few episodes to die again in season 3.
Yes.
So that'll be pretty interesting. I was so surprised. I didn't realize, I knew Edge was coming this season, but I saw the episode before you saw it tonight.
Right.
And I didn't realize that was Edge. And then you came in and watched it with me the second time and say, oh, by the way, that's Edge. I'm like, what? Wait, really? And then for sure, at that point, I see it. I like the fact that, once again, too, talking about how they don't drag stories out for so long. Not only do they not drag out the mystery, why is there this separation between Barry and the rest of his team, they don't drag out, we got to mend these fences between Barry's team. As a 1-episode story arc, they close the story out, but the episode ends with them all together with that whole forward moment, and it felt really good to me. I like that. And one of the things, we mentioned this in the preseason episode, was that another thing that Flash does so well is that they do Villain of the Week while progressing their overall story arc at a really good pace at the same time. Adam Smasher, clearly a Villain of the Week, yet the overall story was introduced. We got Adam West thrown in there. We got the dad released from prison. Yeah. One of the main storylines of all of season 1, all of a sudden out of nowhere in the last 10 minutes, resolved. And I thought that was really cool, the way they handled that. I'm finding... why is his name eluding me? The kid who plays Flash, Grant Gustin.
Yeah,
I find that kid he reminds me a lot of Stephen Amell in the sense that Amell, I thought was a good choice to play Arrow, but the more that show went on, just Amell got better and better and better. I love Grant. I liked him in this role first, even though I thought a little weird, nerdy, but as the show's gone on, I think he's gotten better and better and better. And now we come into season 2, he's handling more emotional kind of stuff. When he's tried to do some emotional stuff in season 1, sometimes it came across kind of hammy and whatever. But I found he dealt with this stuff much better. That scene at the end with his dad as well, when his dad is revealing he's going to leave, there was some subtlety in the emotion that he did as well, which we didn't see him do that. We didn't see him capable of that in season 1. He did it here. I like the beginning of this episode. I like the middle of this episode. I like the end of this episode. Strong. I'm very happy. Very happy.
So the good thing too is that even though they answered some questions, they of course gave us more, questions to ask for the rest of the season.
Yes.
And they still don't know where Adam Smasher came from.
Right.
They
never answered the question. Why did you kill that guy, and why do you look like him?
Right. They assumed like, did you have a twin or something else? Why did he kill him? They don't know that he's from another dimension or timeline. They still don't understand that. So they're still trying to figure all that out.
Yeah, all he said was, they'll send me home. He'll send me home.
Right.
He promised that he would send me home. And I think he's talking about, and he's mentioned Zoom.
Just like Eobard Thawne wanted to go home back then.
Yeah, and Professor Zoom, as we all know, those who know the history of the comics know that he's almost as powerful, if not more powerful, than Reverse Flash. So this whole idea that we're getting him introduced.
He goes by Reverse Flash, Does
right,
he
and
not?
that's
Yeah.
what I'm saying. Like it goes all over the place, right? So it's still this, like he has many names, so therefore he's still like he can come in any form, right? And I think that's fascinating when they open that up to see what we play with there. But the whole thing with the dad, like, it was so interesting to have him come. He's released, and you think, okay, great, they're going to come together, they're going to work together as a father and son team, and then he's like, I got to get out of here. It's been fun, but I got to leave you
I didn't
alone.
like
to
that.
raise.
I didn't like that at all.
Let's get to
Weird.
that. Let's get to that in a second when we
Okay.
get to our negatives about the episode.
yeah, okay.
When we get but you're right. They answered a lot of questions. While they brought up a bunch more questions.
Yeah.
And I think like with the Reverse Flash, he was from another time. But now we're dealing with probably other dimensions
Yes.
that these guys are from. That was probably a result of the singularity. I'm speculating at this point. I haven't heard them say that that's the case. But the fact that they introduced Zoom and they gave us another little taste of Cisco's abilities.
Yeah.
But now it's not from an alternate version of his life or an alternate timeline. He's now seeing Atom Smasher talking to Zoom. So I'm like, okay, wait a minute. What? How is he doing that? So that raised some great questions for me.
Yep.
The whole thing about what is the overall now story arc of season 2 going to be, especially now with the dad being released at this point. So a lot of really cool things to me that kind of just stood out.
Also, just to add, when Flash did ask Atom Smasher initially when he first, came into contact, he said, why do you look like that guy? And he's like, if I told you, you wouldn't believe me. So they do kind of like
and then
set up a little bit.
And what did Flash say? Flash gave a great line. He said, try me.
Yeah.
Which I love that
Yeah.
line. That was a great line.
Definitely. And to go off of the Cisco thing as well, I agree. They always present more questions in like a really good way. That's what I like about this show. Like they'll kind of like sprinkle in little like, ooh, did you get that? And I was going to bring up the Cisco having that like weird flashback. That was a really good way to kind of present that because it leaves you questioning, but you're not told, it's not lost on you. Yeah. Like you remember it. And you're hoping that it comes up in future episodes. So
right,
I
Joe
like
even asked him. He said, "What happened to you? Kind of like you freaked out or something during the whole thing."
And looked like he was
Exactly.
about to tell Joe what it was, but then he got kind of interrupted.
I'm just wondering how much more obscure 80s references we're going to get from Cisco, who is nowhere near old enough to be making references. Lone Wolf McQuaid?
He's
Quiet
a
Riot.
cultural sponge. He appreciates the cultural
Come on,
stuff.
feel the noise from Quiet Riot. I mean, these are so interesting to throw in. It reminds me a lot of Gilmore Girls, where they were referencing stuff that like is beyond their age,
You've lost
but
me.
it works.
You've totally lost me.
I'm just saying,
Plastic
but it
Gilmore
works,
Girls,
Yeah.
because he's too young. But he can carry it because he's so charming now, and we love him. Like that little move he did with. That's all little things that really make enrich Cisco's character and make us
Definitely.
love watching him. Right?
And Cisco had one of the prize last lines of the episode too. It's like it was a great setup for the joke. I was saying, now, Star Labs is now impenetrable. Nobody can walk in here and watch Jay Garrett. But everybody turns around. What? Oh, who are you? And then Cisco is. Well, what did Cisco say exactly? It's like,
He was like, "For real?" Or
for
something?
real?
Yeah, it was like, "For real?"
For real. It was like, which was great. You know what? One of the other things I loved about this episode was something that was not there. And here's one of the things I was worried about. I was worried that, now I didn't know we were going to pick up 6 months later, but when I realized we were 6 months later, with Eddie having sacrificed himself to save Flash and save the city and save the world, basically, I was afraid that we would come into season 2 and we would just be, just forget about that, and Iris and Barry would be rubbing body parts already. Like I was concerned that they would be doing that already. And if not that, I thought they'd be really emphasizing the connection between them again, and they didn't. And I love that they didn't. They didn't ignore that they have a history, but it's like, nah, Eddie kind of just died. And they're in a different place and they're dealing with stuff. And I love that they didn't just dive right back into the romance. And I expect they will at some point. But I love the fact that the writers had enough respect for us as an audience and for the characters that they realized now's not the time for that. And that gives me a lot of confidence in the writers in the show moving forward.
I like some of the references too, just because the universe is, we had, 22, 23 episodes last season, and it's a huge universe now. Gorilla Grodd.
Right.
They
The
reference him
references.
right away.
Yeah, right
I
away.
love that.
He's like, Grodd didn't do this. That was
And Joe's
great.
like, okay. We're not ready for Grodd yet.
Yeah, he's coming. He's coming eventually. And then the placement of Jay Garrett, you'd see him, in the episode, kind of just in the background, in the foreground.
Taking pictures at Flash Day.
You know he's coming. You know it's coming, especially if you've seen some of the pictures coming in. So, I mean, they teased us, and maybe we'll talk about that in the weaknesses until the very end, but I thought he was well placed throughout the episode.
I did too. Now, did anybody else get the feeling that when they gave us, now this is a little bit cheating, but when they give that little sneak peek into what's coming up next week, it almost gets the feeling that Jay is going to be the new Obi-Wan for Barry. Now that Wells isn't there to kind of be that. Yeah. Was it just me or did you guys
and he even had like the Star Labs sweatshirt on, so like he's kind of settling in for the long
we don't
haul.
see him running or doing doing any Flash stuff. So is he, we don't even know if he's going to reveal his powers.
Or does he still have his,
yeah.
Has he lost his connection to the Speed Force?
Right.
Now that he's in a different dimension altogether.
Exactly.
All right, well, go ahead.
Oh, I was saying that's a good point. And that also makes me, now that you're bringing that up, it also makes me think that that is why they wrote Barry's dad leaving into the storyline, because they need to make room for other mentors for Barry.
That is a great point because that leads us into some things we thought maybe could have been done better about this episode.
There's a list.
And I was going to go last on this, but since you brought that up, which I think is it addresses one of my concerns. One of my concerns and things I thought could have been handled better, and I got to believe I'm not going to be the only person at the table that brings this up, is Dad's sudden announcement, I'm leaving.
Yeah.
Like if
At the party.
Barry, at the party, Barry. Yeah, see, here's the thing, Dad. I've just busted my ass for 14 years, caused a black hole in the city, all this kind of stuff to get you out. And now I've been without my father for 14 years. Now you tell me the day I get you out that you're going on a little bit of a trip.
Right.
Poorly handled. Now, somebody in the room, I think it was you, David, that asked the question out loud. So is this a budget thing or a story thing? And I've got to believe it's a story thing for a couple of reasons. If they just wanted to ignore him, they could have just left him in prison, right? Because they didn't visit him in prison all the time anyway on the show. Right. But you just brought up a great explanation where we've got a mentor figure in here now. Joe isn't going anywhere, so we still got a father figure. We've got the mentor figure. Maybe there's not room, but I did think it was interesting that he said, look, when you need me, I'll be here. So I have a feeling we have not seen the last of Dr. Allen in this season, but still, I did not like the way that was handled. Barry put up no fight. Like when the dad asked him, do you really think you can be the hero you need to be if I'm here? Yeah? You've been here in the city the whole time in prison. It's a little bit less of a distraction for me now that you're not in prison.
Exactly.
And
And
he
stay the night. Like,
where's he going? He's like, oh, I already got a bus ticket. I'm out. It's like, where are you going?
Listen, now that you're pressuring me to answer you, I'm out of here. I got a bus ticket. Yeah, like you're
I thought that was a little unrealistic.
The fact that Barry didn't even put up an argument about it.
Right.
Now, the other thing.
What money does he have?
Yeah.
Well, he was a
Where's he
doctor
gonna
for
go?
14 years, though. He's got his bank account
Barry
still.
Barry had a little savings for him. just
I
in case
guess
he got
so.
it,
Maybe he still had his estate, whether he was a doctor.
Joe,
I guess.
hey, Joe,
lot
you
of
got a little-
interest. Lot of interest over 14 years.
That's true, I guess.
And doctor's golfing money. I guess. Here's the other issue that I had because it was just swept under the rug. Last year, there was a couple of episodes, but one in particular. It was the episode where Barry is trying to get the prisoners of Star Labs out of town.
Oh, yeah.
And they get Captain Cold. And then there's that end scene in that episode where Joe's like, look, because he's like, I just thought I could be like Oliver. Oliver will do what needs to be done. And Joe's like, well, you're not Oliver. You're something different, all that kind of stuff. Since when did Team Flash think, okay, killing the bad guy is an okay thing to do? They kill Atom Smasher. Now, don't get me wrong. I got it. Because, when he's dying there, he's like, I'm sorry, but I couldn't let you hurt anybody. He's got the radiation bubbles on his skin now. And now, granted, nobody said, okay, he's dead now. But I thought they played it out. I thought he's dead.
You think he's dead?
Oh, I think he's dead.
I
Yeah.
didn't
think
get
so
that.
at all.
I didn't think he was dead.
Yeah,
either.
I think they did that. And the first thing Barry says, he's kneeling over him. I'm sorry, but I couldn't let you hurt anybody anymore.
Yeah.
See, he never apologized for taking somebody off to jail.
Right.
So he's there and he's got all the radiation bubbles on his skin. So
Okay.
And so I get it. Like, you can't stop him. This is your one way to stop him, to save innocent people. I get it. But that is an Oliver thing. And the fact that there was no debate, no discussion about, there was a big conflict of conscience with Barry just when he saw Oliver beating a guy.
Yeah.
And him and his team kind of decided, okay, this is how we're going to have to stop him. Now it's going to kill him. Okay, but it was just glossed over. Now, if we come back into episode 2, episode 3, and we go back into the Star Labs prison and we see Atom Smasher in there, that solves all of that. Right. But I really did get the impression that he was dead. Wow. And the fact that they didn't even talk about it, or when they made such a big deal out of this is something that Team Flash doesn't do, I thought that part could have been handled better. Anyway, John, what about you? What were some things that stood out to you that maybe you thought could have been handled better?
Definitely the dad stuff, absolutely, like you already covered, John. But I would definitely also say that Daniel Pennebaker's character has no problem with Ronnie dying again. Like, she cries a little bit and then that's it.
Exactly.
And I'm just like, he's died again. Like, you have to have some kind of mental breakdown at some point, right? The love of your life keeps dying twice, at some point. And this is interesting because what you were saying about this show and about how Arrow would do this, it felt to me, this episode felt very Arrow-ish, in that they have this little bit of darkness hanging over everything. What's the dream sequence? What isn't a dream sequence? And then you have this whole thing where people are just running through emotions quickly. Like, it's not a big deal. It doesn't linger. And we're moving on to the next thing. And like, even Barry came back after his dad left and he's like, hey, let me make you feel better, Barry. Here's the key to the city. Oh, this is kind of nice. Yeah, let me not think about my dad anymore. And it was just, no. I just would like a little bit more of that. I agree with what you say, John, that like they wrap stuff up quickly. That is a really good part of the show. But sometimes letting things linger just a little bit longer for me would help me enjoy those moments a bit more.
I think in their defense a little bit, though. Yeah. I mean, I think, although I can't get around it, you're right. But in its defense a little bit, it was 6 months since she lost Ronnie again.
No, but when we find out that he died when they show the flashback sequence, it's a real quick, I'm going to hug Barry real quick.
All he says is, I have to try, and she just lets him go. And then he dies.
Right.
Yeah, and then he dies.
And then Barry just hugs her while she's crying. But there isn't like that kind of, what, again? There's not that kind of,
well, I mean, she did leave Star Labs. She left the team.
Right,
she separated. Right. She gave that speech about, I couldn't be there anymore because being there is a reminder that I could have left with Ronnie. Never mind the fact that if you did leave with Ronnie, the world would have been destroyed. So we won't worry about that little part.
Do you think Barry took on that death unnecessarily? Like, he didn't make him go into the thing.
No,
but was creating the singularity. Do you think he felt guilty?
Well, what did he say? There's a quote. Joe said, "Stop hogging all the blame and regret."
Right.
He's hogging all of it. He did that when his mom died. Tried to like be tough and be angry all the time.
Right.
And Joe's saying, "Stop that." It's actually harder to feel.
One of the great things though about this character, and this is what goes to what you were just saying, is that he is such an imperfect character.
Yes.
He isn't one of these superheroes that new bad guy steps up the plate, right on, I'm going to kick his ass too. The Flash is a character who is time and time again getting his ass kicked, and he's getting beaten, and time and time again he runs into these situations where he's not enough. Quite often saved by either Team Flash or Oliver coming in to help him or Firestorm for helping him. And I think he takes a lot of that on himself. And I think the reason he was blaming himself was not the creation of the singularity, although he should have been blaming himself. Really? You're gonna risk the entire world so you can go get your mom back? Idiot. Anyway, what I think he was taking on himself was the blame because he couldn't stop it himself. He couldn't stop the singularity himself to the point that Firestorm had to come up and do it. So unnecessarily, yes, but I think that's consistent with what we know about Barry and why he would take that blame on himself. It's constantly, I'm not good enough, and that weighs on him more and more and more. Right.
What about you? What were some things that didn't stand out for you?
Two things, actually. One is, I think it's funny that you guys are comparing, or you compared it to Arrow.
A little bit, yeah.
Because I thought during Flash Day, I was like, oh, very different. He's being embraced by his city, and the Arrow is not embraced by his city at all.
Good,
and it's very bright and shiny, and they're all like, "Yay!" And the Arrow, it's all dark, and they think he's a murderer half the time. So that's one of the things where I was like, I thought the opposite. But anyway, also, I think 6 months can do a lot to you. I mean, talking about Barry, I think it hardened him when you were talking about killing Atom Smasher. He's a lot less, as you said, a lot less emotional now. When he's laying in bed and Joe's there with him, just one single tear. Usually he breaks down with this,
He's a one-tear kind of guy now.
One tear.
Now he's a one-tear guy.
With his dad leaving, not crazy emotional like he normally is. So I think maybe, 6 months of being on his own, maybe he's a little bit of a hardened character now. We'll see.
Maybe we'll see a little bit of that. What about you? Or some things that didn't work for you so much?
Does Iris have a job? How's this girl? I mean, it's okay. I know she's working at the paper. It's like, oh, it's about writing an article, but like you never see her there. I just don't get why she's around.
She's always on the phone.
And that just bothers me. She's just around. I don't get why she's around. She's there because it's going to be the whole will they, won't they, and they're going to play that up over and over and over again. And she's just a plot device. I don't see her as doing anything. She's a part of the team. I don't think I want her to be a part of the team.
I got to tell you though, this episode, now, Iris has not been my favorite part about Flash up until this point. But I gotta say, I do like the way they handled her this episode. She seemed a little, once again, maybe it's because they're detaching the romantic stuff with Barry, which I'm sure they will revisit at some point, and I'm fine with that. But it just seems she was more the hardened voice in this one. It's like Barry keeps saying no. Well, it's time for us to not ask him permission anymore. This is what he needs, and this is what we're going to do. Now, while everybody else is standing around solving problems, I'm not quite sure what she's doing yet, but maybe it's because maybe she's that emotional anchor for Barry. Maybe that she's she's what Barry needs in that kind of a way, I guess. Right?
Or she'll blog about it. She'll be like, what's Sherlock Holmes? She's Watson. Watson has a blog. Watson has a blog. She'll blog about it.
Really hurt me today.
I know.
This is what Iris does, though, John. I think this was consistent about Iris. She's always like not doing what she's supposed to do. She's always like breaking the convention, pushing the boundaries, like violating people's personal spaces. She did this all through season 1, where she had a crush on the Flash, but was seeing Eddie on the side, and then there was a thing thrown in with Barry. So there was all this stuff that she's always, and then she's like, I should be a reporter after blogging. I should be she just doesn't follow convention at all. She pushes the boundaries of what she should and shouldn't be doing. So I think that's her purpose on the show, where everyone else is like lost in inaction and thinking it over because they're not strong enough to stand up to Barry. I think Iris is the only person that does, which is what her function is on the show. Like Barry can push even Joe around at times because Joe has that soft spot for him, whereas Iris is more of a hardened sister.
And Barry has that soft spot for Iris.
Right,
yeah.
right.
Yes.
And I think they're more brother sister than they are.
I
It
get
feels
this- I
that,
know.
right?
I hope-
I don't know if they're ever
I
going to
do.
explore that.
Because I like Candace Patton. I think she's fine. I just hope the writers give her something interesting to do besides
Yes, an
just be
actress.
around. And then when stuff happens, she's just kind of there saying things and not actually contributing for the team.
Well, you know, a lot of comparisons have been made between Iris and Laurel on Green
Laurel
Arrow.
has something to do now.
Yeah, don't go there.
Oh,
But
yeah.
but here's what I appreciate, and here's what I
Wrong show,
appreciate.
wrong show.
I hope it's fight training.
Here's what I appreciate, and it's that I feel like the writers of Flash right now are in a little bit of the same spot that the writers of Arrow went with Laurel, in the sense that I feel like the writers themselves are exploring Iris a little bit and trying to figure out her place. Now, the difference, though, now is that back when the writers of Arrow were doing that with Laurel, and they weren't quite sure yet what her place, how are we going to get her to where we want her to be? They were putting her at the forefront, trying crap out that was just not working. With Iris, she's a reserve player. She's more background character as they're working it out. And that's why I feel like there's a lot you can do with this Iris character. They're trying to figure out the best way to do it. And I like that they're not putting her right out center stage while they're figuring it out. They're putting her more in the background, have her play the important roles that we know she can play, like the ones you were just describing. And so I really appreciate the way they're navigating that right now, because I've seen it done the wrong way without going into too much anymore. Well, listen, we also said we would take some of your Twitter questions. You guys have sent Twitter questions into us to the hashtag #ColliderFlash. So let's get to a couple of those right now. Dennis, let's bring up the first one here. The first question we got on Twitter comes from Nick Vargas, who writes, do you believe there is something more to Well/Thon's confession? I want to believe that it was just that, but I can't. John, what do you think?
Oh, of course. I think there is absolutely more to this confession, and I hope there is more to this confession because it opens up all these other possibilities that we can play with. I don't think we're done with Wells in any way, shape, or form, and I think we've heard that Ed Kavanaugh is coming back, so it's going to play into things down the road, so to me it has to on the Flash. That just makes sense. Nothing's ever dead in comics. Nothing's ever dead in comic book shows. It always comes back. So I hope it is something that there's more to.
Quinn, is there more to this?
Yeah, definitely. I hope that there is. I like Dr. Wells. I like the character. I'm really excited for him to come back. I'm excited to see how he comes back. And I think it was just one of those things that it had to be addressed. Barry's dad had to be addressed.
Yeah.
So just adding that little bit in, I think it also kind of added to the story of how he got out, how his dad got out of jail or prison. So.
Now, am I the only one who thinks at some point another video file on that thumb drive is going to be unlocked somehow? And notice we didn't see the end of the video.
No.
We went from him starting the confession, the camera goes to Barry's face, and we never see what comes after that.
Or his description, right? You were saying that,
I was
David.
going to ask, a little off topic, but did the AI, artificial intelligence, get destroyed? The not Edie, I forgot. I'm calling her Edie because I'm thinking of Mass Effect, the video game. But I mean, what's the
Cisco names it?
It's
the same.
Oh, the boot.
Well, because she's one of
this
the
episode or
new
last
gods in the comic.
okay.
Like the name's after one of the gods in DC. Gideon. Yeah. Is she still around? I wonder.
I think so, because he said
because she had all these
that's what
answers
you're
about the
talking
future. Like they could ask her anything.
or did her power source deplete? Wasn't she dying?
maybe,
Wasn't
yeah.
her power
At the end
source
of the
deplete?
last.
Okay, she's gone. Okay, because I was gonna say, I think, of course, he doesn't do anything out of the kindness of his own heart. So of course, I think he has something else in mind. He's playing the long game somehow.
Somebody wrote me a tweet and asked me this question. It's a great question. He goes, hey, if Eddie shot himself and in doing so, the reverse flash was erased from history, how come that video file's still there? How is he around to make that video? Good question. We're just going to move on. All right, what's the next Twitter question today? Gigi writes, do you think Team Flash is too big now? If so, could they eventually face the same issues as Arrow last season? Thanks. Well, they aren't as big as they were at the start of the episode. Too soon? Too soon, Ronnie? Again? I don't know. When you do see, it's a good question, because when you see at that forward moment, there's a lot of people in that room. Do you think that could possibly give us issues of overcrowding in the storyline at some point, or do you think it's working fine?
I think it'll be fine as long as, like you said, with Iris not being a distraction, being in the foreground, as long as they're not all competing for the top spot. You know, we know who the show focuses around. It's about Barry. Then that's fine. If they're all just supporting cast members, supporting Barry and his mission, whatever he has to do, and they don't get in the way, I think that's fine. Because right now, so far, especially after season 1, it's played out pretty well. Right. So I trust him.
As long as there's not too many secondary stories to get confused, especially if they introduce all this alternate world time stuff. I can't deal with way too many people. That's going to be too much. So I'm hoping that they just kind of, they're all like a support system for Barry. That should be the main storyline, in my opinion.
Well, this is something that has come up with some of my other friends when we've talked about how much I love Flash versus Arrow. They were like, well, that's the first season. You have to understand, like, the Arrows have been having to maintain this for 3-4 seasons now with this building crew, building Team Arrow. And so the Flash is going to run into the same things. And I agree with this person who's asking the Twitter question. Like, it's certainly a possibility, because at the end of the episode, even at the party, everybody at the party is in Team Flash. And that's almost 12 people in that party. So you're like, do we really need all this? I mean, we include Isabella Hoffman, who is the Doctor's wife, Garber's wife, who's a great actress, and they didn't use her that much in this episode. She's going to come into play. So there's a lot of good people. There's a lot of good actors that they're going to use. But you're right. But I mean, the Twitter, it's a possibility. It may get too much because all those people need storylines. Do we have enough to maintain all their storylines and throw in the cops and throw in Villain of the Week and throw in Zoom and throw in Jay Garrick? There's a lot. So
and you could almost say Captain Cold might be a part of that as well.
Right at the beginning,
although I was so happy that when I was watching the episode, so happy to realize that one scene was just a dream sequence. He goes, he's coming fast for me to kill him. I was like, really? That was so bad. Oh, it was a dream. Okay, I get it. All right, let's take the last Twitter question of the day. And the last Twitter question today comes from Caleb Lalonde, who writes, do you think Barry's father could get killed off this season? I would personally rather it not go there. Feels too dark. Hashtag Collider Flash. Look, here's the thing. The Flash is not Arrow, but for you to maintain any dramatic tension, you have to have bad things happen sometimes. A Ronnie needs to die. A Cisco needs to die. Like, if you never do things that are a little bit dark once in a while, you don't have your context for what is bright and what is light. So now, that gets us back to the original point of the question. Do I think that they will actually kill off Barry's dad? I don't think so. I think they could have gotten rid of him if they wanted to. I do think they want him around. The way they left it off was him telling Barry, whenever you need me, I will be here. I think that brings it up. But it remains as a bullet in their chamber that they can use if they ever want to. Do you think, David, that this season we could see the death of Barry's dad?
It's possible, but I want to say no. I feel like he has enough of a motivator right now to keep going. There's been enough tragedy in his life. There's, like he said, what did he say today? He said, every time I think I'm getting something good, it just ends up turning bad.
Every time I win, I still lose.
So, I mean, he's already in a negative mindset. He doesn't need more drama to happen in his life, more death. But, I mean, you're right, John. It can happen anywhere. I mean, Peter Parker, Spider-Man's a very uplifting comic book compared to like a Batman, but Peter Parker still lost Uncle Ben. So, I mean, it's very possible that could happen.
And Gwen Stacy, he has a history of it,
Yeah, Gwen Stacy. Quinn, what do you think? Could we see the death of Barry's dad?
I could see that. I could see that being like a season finale thing, a main villain killing the dad, just because they're not going to kill him now. If they were going to kill him, they would have killed him. He's not just
Right.
going to leave and then, next episode, yeah, he died too. Like, they're not going to do that.
On the bus.
Yeah.
On the bus ride.
Almost got in a tragic
on the
accident.
trip, yeah. But no, I can see that being like a motivator for maybe season
Rizzo.
3. Like, he's, avenging his father, like episode 1 of season 3 or something like that. I could see him doing
I agree. I
something
think
like
if they plan to do it, and if they do it this season, you can't do it too early because, like I said, the Flash's entire motivation for all of season 1 was getting my dad out of prison. If you're going to kill off the dad, that's fine. Give him a year.
Yeah.
Give him some time out of prison. If you kill him in the first 5 or 6 episodes of season 2, that's going to feel like an awful waste of what the entire point of season 1 was, wasn't it?
Yeah. I don't think he's dead. And I don't think he's going to die. But here's my thing. There was a moment at the end of that party where they're sharing a moment. I think he had something to do with the death of his wife. And there was just a moment between them when he was explaining why he had to leave that I was like, there's a reason for this, And it felt to me like he may feel some kind of guilt or something he did in his past or something he did that caused this to happen. And
In the same way that you think there was more to Wells's confession than what we saw, you think there was more to his dad leaving than just that.
I feel like there's a long game being played here with Barry's dad and Wells that is going to come to fruition. And I think that's why they sent him away for now, so that he's kind of out of your mindset and you get all this stuff established, and then he'll come occasionally back and have these little storylines. You're like, what does this mean? I wouldn't be shocked if we see him as like a hobo with his beard grown out or something, still trying to figure out, where he belongs. And then he finally has that confession where he tells Barry, this is what happened. This is why your mother died.
In the video, too, he says, I'll give you what you want, but you're not going to like it.
Yes.
So maybe
Or you
he
still
knows,
won't be happy.
Or you still
You
won't be
still
happy,
won't be
yeah.
happy.
So
I'm
maybe
saying.
he
So
knows
to me-
something. I mean, he obviously knows.
feel like
Maybe
there's
that's
something there.
connected
Yeah.
to in the finale of last season when Barry goes back to save his mom and he sees another future version of himself and he goes,
Yes.
like, is there something else going on? I have a feeling, though, if he does have something to do with the death of his wife, of Barry's mom, that'll be the same kind of way that Barry holds himself responsible
Yes,
for all the bad stuff.
absolutely,
It's not
absolutely.
like, I actually wanted my wife gone.
No. Which is why I think he'll be a bum with he'll
Right.
just dealing with the guilt of it all. He'll go through
Interesting
what he goes
theory.
Oh, before we go, we did talk about the Batman reference.
through. Yeah.
We got to
the-
talk about Batman. Yeah, it's like, I think I read it in some comic book
I read
or
some
something.
comic
Yeah,
book.
we got to talk about Batman. There was a Batman
It's like
reference.
when they were showing, it's like, is that a flash symbol in the sky? And he's actually, first of all, when did they build that? When did they
Right.
build that flash spotlight?
Cisco just always has it sitting around.
That was a nice reference. That was pretty cool. All right, folks. Listen, don't forget, guys, we will be back again next week to talk about the next episode of Flash. But even throughout the week, whatever, tweet to us. Just write out any tweet and make sure you include the hashtag #ColliderFlash. That way we can find it. It'll come to us. We'll see it and all that kind of stuff. And make sure you watch episode 2 next week. Send in your questions as well. Thank you so much for joining us. And make sure, guys, become evangelists of this show for us. Share this video on your Twitter, on your Facebook. Get other people who love The Flash involved with the Flash Recap Show as well. I'll thank the guys sitting at the table with me. First of all, starting over here on my left, David, where can people find you online?
You can, first of all, you can find me here every Tuesday that The Flash is on talking about The Flash. And on a more personal level, you can find me on Twitter at GriffinDE. Tweet me up and we'll have a conversation.
Sitting over here, John, where can people find you online?
At the Rocha Says on Twitter and on Instagram, and I'm always responding. So yeah, tweet at me away all you want.
And over there on the end, Quinn, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Quinn Marie _, and I will be here every Tuesday and Wednesday talking about The Flash and Empire. So I would like to answer either questions about either show.
And you guys, as always, you can find me here on Collider Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday on Movie Talk, on Heroes on Tuesdays, on Jedi Council on Thursdays, on Mailbag on Saturdays and Sundays. You can find me here talking about The Flash. What day is it today? On Tuesdays. You can find me talking about Blacklist on there, whatever. But you can follow me on social media, on Facebook and on Twitter, simply at John Campea. So special thanks to Jonathan and Dennis and Wendy back there. Thanks for joining us, guys. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Share this video around, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.